It's now time for our first debate, and it's pretty appropriate that it's on one of the hottest topics in recent months. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, whatever you call it, these technologies have been the buzzwords in the last few years in HR. Here you see our May issue from last year, Say Hello to Your Next Hire. We kind of had a little fun with this, acting like robots are taking over the workplace. But AI automation is certainly impacting HR, and the conversation continues today. Automation, voice-activated technology, and robotics are even part of our everyday lives. Alexa, play one of my favorite commercials.
That makes sense. So if I buy for a business I started, I'm able to deduct it?
Yes, that's definitely a deductible expense.
That was really helpful. Man, I love technology, but it is infinitely better with people. Sometimes you just need that real human touch, you know? A little bit of empathy and understanding. Like I was saying, humans and technology working together.
You talk too much.
TurboTax Live, now at CEAs on demand.
Okay, I thought that commercial was pretty perfect, humans and technology working together. And I do think that's a good place for us to start on our debate. So joining me are 4 HR leaders who are going to share their views on HR and automation. So I'd love it if we could start by introducing ourselves and just saying where you are with your organization in terms of leveraging automation. Cindy?
Sure, Cindy Fiedelman, and I run HR for a company called Digital Realty. We're in the data center business. I have about 200 data centers around the world, which relative to AI and how it's managed will keep a company like ours in business with everything going through the cloud for a long time. But in terms of where we are with AI, we really have not gotten into anything yet, just in really the thinking about it phase and where are the places that make sense to consider it.
Hi, Rebecca Sinclair with American Tire Distributors. We are the largest secondary tire distributor in the country, and we have about 140 supply chain locations, so we really are going through a transformation. We have a whole data analytics team that we set up in the past year. And as it relates to HR, we brought in some of the best AI and transformational type of tools that we can have, because we need to, when you're doing private equity transformation, you have to move as rapidly as the business and your sponsors need to produce an outcome for the organization. So we've done a lot of interesting work with that.
Great.
Hello, I'm Nancy Howdy, and I'm the HRO of Automation Anywhere, which is a Silicon Valley pre-IPO company with the fastest growing enterprise software company on earth today. And our specialty is robotic process automation. Today, I have approximately 75 digital colleagues working in HR alongside my HR team. We have another 107 in the queue to go live, so to speak, before the end of the year. We have automated many processes in human resources, from counting headcount to sourcing to onboarding to writing all our offer letters. We are on the journey of being as automated as possible, as soon as possible, with at least 10% of our workforce at Automation Anywhere as digital colleagues that need to be.
Hi, I'm Roger Gaston, and I work at Gates Industrial, manufacturer of rubber products for the automotive space as well as the industrial space. I've been there about 2.5 years, 100-plus-year-old company, and we are in the process of kind of transforming the HR function from a 100-year-old company into a modern-day company. We do not have any bots at this point. We are in the process of investigation. We know that we need to make that move, and so this is an opportunity to talk about a little bit about how do you get there, as well as what's that destination look like once you get there.
Great. So it looks like we're about 50-50 on stage. So about show of hands in the audience, who is leveraging automation for HR right now? Okay, so we're about the same in the audience. So I think a good place to start is where Roger left off, talking about where he's going, his organization's going on his journey, and then to find out how it can be made possible.
We, as I said, we're building a new HR organization globally. We have about 16,000 employees. We are the about 3/4 of those employees are in our manufacturing facilities and distribution centers. We have some automation in our manufacturing processes, but even in that phase of our business, we are not fully automated and probably never will be based on the manufacturing process for our products. And that has kind of translated into the rest of the company as well. So we are at the kind of basic stages of transitioning our human capital management systems and processes. And as we have gotten to the point where we're nearly there, this whole concept of AI, bots, et cetera, in terms of how do we bring that into the HR function? How do we help that globalization of the HR function using bots and not looking at it as a way of reducing headcount? I mean, Nancy has more bots than I have people, but not looking to reduce headcount, but looking to get greater efficiency and bring knowledge into our function in a way that is just very difficult to get there today. So we are partnering with our IT partners. We're looking at, we're doing our investigation right now about where do we go, who are the best people to partner with, and trying to look at what problems are going to be the best to solve with a bot, and that's really where we are right now.
Great. And Cindy, would you like to share?
Sure. In terms of our workforce, we're made up of about 1,500 people around the globe, and about half of those are in our data centers, whether they're electricians or engineers or security people, and then the rest are more corporate management-facing employees. So in terms of from a process standpoint, we've been on a journey to get a lot more automation just in the business. We've not been a very sophisticated, systems-oriented company, and that's been rapidly changing. On the HR side, we are about year 3 into about a 5-year transformation, came into an organization that really was just based very transactional, and have put in everything from new HR system to process to some of the more value-added services. In terms of looking at how do we continue to automate from an AI standpoint, we've looked a lot. We've started to talk about how do we do this around recruiting. That's when I came in, that was probably the most advanced part of our process, and as we've upgraded different things, that's become the one that now is really time for some change. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in some of the tasks, as Nancy had said earlier, whether it's onboarding or offer letters or some of those easily discernible transactional items that are up for consideration as we continue to evolve.
Right. Okay, great. So Roger mentioned becoming more efficient, problems to solve. So Nancy or Rebecca, do you have any comments, or was that a place you guys looked at when you started?
Yeah, I think because you got all the bots, so you got all the sexy stuff. But we have a great technology stack at the organization that I'm at. We have over 5,000 associates, and so it was. I've been there a little over 2 years, and it was to come and transform the company, do a modern HR department. But really, I think the area that I'd like to talk about is we, as business stewards, we get all the things automated that we can, but it's about changing business, producing outcome, generating revenue. And so part of the strategy that I held with my team was kind of a knowledge economy, right? How do I skill up workers to make sure that this business can transform and sell and produce? And so we really have been in this space for probably about 6 years, and it's hard because the technology is now catching up. But we have the best kind of AI, machine learning, very individualized approaches, and we've taken an 800-person selling team that when I joined a few years ago, it's like the bad news bears, and it's like, boy, how are we going to modernize this industry? And we now have insight-driven sellers. We have sellers that are 85% participating in this individualized AI learning experience. But it's not about participation, because that's what we've done before. Like, how do you guys prove your work? They've gone to the class. This is about having systems and technologies that engage with associates, and it learns the way each one of you learn at the pace and rate that you learn. And it's not about taking the manuals and saying, oh my gosh, I've got to dump all this in to make it work. It's about finding the cliff notes. It's about knowing what the business outcome needs to be and taking a new approach to HR, which is engineering that outcome using technology to produce the result. And we've reached a point now within a year from being, starting and getting this introduced, that we are producing data analytics, A/B tested, validated results that we're contributing 17% to the sales revenue of our company. That is the kind of thing that helps us as we modernize our HR functions to really show our proof at the table, because then they want you there at the table, not just solving the problem, but really thinking about the technology and the insights and the tools that we can do to do
When
that.
you're driving results like that, absolutely.
So my
Nancy?
mission is a little different. This is what we do. This is what we provide. And so as I joined the company just under 2 years ago, the CEO said to me, Nancy, what's the role of human resources when 30% of the workforce isn't human? And I thought, 73 years old, this is a question I'd like to answer before I retire. I'm not 73. I only said that for a second. You think, gee, she was going to do it. Just waking people up. So I approached this journey differently because we needed to be, we're like the college children. We didn't have developers to come in. I couldn't go get consultants to come in. Our customer success group, is focused on our customers. And so we handled this differently. I had to figure out what's the lowest hanging fruit, what task would have an impact on my group and make certain that they got very comfortable with this. And so we chose headcount because it sucks scissors to do a headcount report every week. And so we automated that. And the interesting thing, and I told the story to a small group yesterday, the most interesting thing about this was within 3 weeks, the young woman who'd been doing the headcount report every Monday, 5 hours it took her to do it. She went into HRIS, she had to go into the tracking, she had to go into payroll, she had to do all sorts of machinations. Finally sent me a PowerPoint at like 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. 3 weeks into it, the bot can do it in 90 minutes. I can have that headcount report every day, as many times as I want a day, and as fast as we're growing, that's helpful. She came to me, Sarah came to me and said, not only will I never do that manually again, I will never work for a company that does it manually because it's an IQ test they're failing. Because in the future, humans will only do the work that only humans can do. We are going to take the robotic work that defines the industrial age out of work, away from humans, and it's going to leave a renaissance of ideas, cranial capacity. It's going to leave a renaissance behind us of the capability that we've never accessed before throughout the entire industrial age. And so it's what is HR's job here? And I think this is the debate. It's not about this technology or that technology. Technology is here right now. I have to tell you, it is just fully realized. And it's about what is our leadership role as this workforce changes. My board has me report not only how many folks on board we have, but also how many digital colleagues we have. We are going to start recruiting for them almost in the same way, but internally we're going to recruit for digital colleagues. What have you created? What have you made? What have you automated? Let's get that in. Let's understand what that is. So we started with low-hanging fruit, and our first bots were developed by HR folks who went online and took the certification program for our company, and then wrote those bots. So if you're thinking, oh my God, I've got this big technology, expenditure, I've got all these things I've got to do, it's going to cost you some money when you go buy it from our competitors or us. Absolutely, it's a platform, you're going to buy it. You're going to rent these suckers anyway, right? They're digital colleagues, but you actually rent them from any of the companies. It's a SaaS-based product. Next year, we'll have 3 million of them deployed. We will be the largest virtual employer on earth. And we're a Silicon Valley kind of startup. Imagine what's going to happen when the big employers really embrace this. And so what is your role in terms of helping human beings thrive in this workforce? What's going to be your role in redefining work when it is no longer defined by the industrial age? So that's my journey so far.
Great. Now, let's talk about the issue of bias. Some argue that automation and AI can be the solution, while others argue it's the cause. So, any feedback on that?
I'll start, and again, not having deployed bots, but the way I think about it is, I don't view it as the cause. I view it as more of a solution. I think that, as Nancy talked about, and I heard her speak earlier, it's kind of using bots for that if-then kind of work. And you take the emotion out of the work. They don't always do it right. Sometimes they might do it wrong or things would go wrong. But the more times, and I always talk about with my team, we touch information so many times. And so many human hands touch information that every point of contact is a point of failure, or a point of bias, or a point of however you want to look at it. And the idea being that let's get the touches down to zero and get the information into a place where it can be processed and it is done in an unemotional way. So I don't view it as creating the problem, I view it as a solution.
I think you still need to have that, but you have to also have, at least as most companies become more technology driven, right, we're all in that space, it's really about also knowing that the business can validate, right, and that you have, whether you have a data analytics team or someone else, there has to be something else that gives that additional proof point, because we're still proving, as there was like, oh, is that real, is it, can we trust that information? And so I think it's also about knowing how we as HR professionals take these automations that we're doing or these higher level things that we're producing and results, and really can show that they are making the contributions that they need to. So that's where I think the bias comes in a little bit. You gotta have another way to kind of check that.
A checklist, yeah.
So
Nancy?
because I don't have to prove it to my management team, right? And so long as they know that our sources of data are correct, our data is correct, if the bias is using it. I think, again, the if-then, remember, as I said, in the future, humans will only do the work that only humans can do. Only a human can care. Only a human can care about the outcome. And so bots only do if-then, 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 if-then. And so if you think about that, and what that provides, when they're doing the if-then, you get to do your if-onlys. Because I'm telling you, I've never met an HR professional who said, if only I didn't have to do this executive development, I could get back to some data entry and analysis. Right? So when you start to think about what can a bot do so I get to my if-onlys, you have to stop worrying about are they going to have what's the human interface? You're the human interface. You put the technology behind you. You move all of that stuff that you've been cluttering up your HR teams with behind them, and they start to engage with people. And as we know, we heard yesterday, surveys aren't engagement. Eye to eye is engagement. What would happen if you could take all the keyboards away from your HR folks and push them out into your organization to actually talk to your people? What would that look like in terms of the work that you're doing? And that is all that automation should be providing to you. I think as we think about how we get validated. Liz McCall, right, just said she hates, I think, change management. I hate business partner. Yeah. I abhor that. I hate that term. It sounds like we're just begging for validation. I don't hear marketing calling themselves a business partner. Sales isn't a business partner to anybody, right? I am so tired of having people say, I must go and beg for validation from the real business. That is just, I almost said that word. So, but you all know what I want to say. So, but that's, that's the issue is we have to stop begging for that, and we have to start focusing on the human piece of human resources. That's what the big change is. And I think we're going to take resources out of the title too. People are not natural gas. And they're not assets, they're not, barcoded hanging on a wall somewhere. We're going to think of an entirely different term for whatever it is this profession is going to end up being. Based on this technology. Probably the most disruptive thing that happened in all of our careers, and I'm not, 73, but I am free to go. I remember when the Selectron typewriter was considered a big disruption.
One of the things that we're doing to build on that is it really requires you to go back and take a look at your leadership development programs. And it's for HR, but my core philosophy is universal design. So it applies into HR and applies to all of the leaders. But you really have to go back and think about that equation of when you have all of this information, right, or things are automated, or you're getting better, richer data, insights, things of that nature, you have to start to educate the new leaders, the new workforce, actually not just a leader, management and associates on When I can produce for you more rich information, how do I use that in an agile way? How do I draw insights? How can I use these analytics so that I'm taking this time off? Now I can think, because there's still strategy and thinking and what to do with it, because it gives you a lot of insight, but you have to still make a decision about what to do with it. So I would encourage you to go down this path. You really have to fundamentally think about your leadership development platforms, fundamentally different, but that applies to associates too.
Something that you were just bringing up, leadership development, something that Elliot had said to me about these technologies is they're taking away some of the very tactical parts of HR, and that's where a lot of people start in their career as generalists. So if this is becoming better, more efficient, we want that direction, but how are you going to build the next workforce of HR leaders?
I think that our profession has, I'm really old too, so I've been around a long time, and our profession has significantly changed over the years, and it will continue to change, and it will continue to morph, and we will continue to have greater tools and capabilities. To me, the one thing that has never changed, though, is the role of HR is really to enable our leaders, enable our organization to manage our human capital. And to me, that's simply our job. And the way that we do that, we have the subject matter expertise that we can provide to our leaders. I think bots will help with that subject matter expertise in terms of collecting all of that data on a global basis and having it available to people. When they ask Alexa the question about what are the employment practices in Poland or whatever it may be, but it doesn't change the fact that humans in our profession have a very important role to interact with other humans in our profession in terms of enabling our leaders to be better people leaders, people managers, business people, driving the outcomes of our enterprises. And I think that that's really what we still have the obligation to do in terms of building the future leaders of our profession. I just think this is another way of bringing those individuals up to speed that much faster.
I'm not sure if you have this experience, but what I have found within HR, even within, because we've applied within HR, we're using it within all the functions as well, this type of technology tools, is it doesn't, because you sometimes say, well, age matters, and they're not going to be able to get it because they've only ever done it this way. I've got distribution centers too, so what I've learned is whether it's an HR person that's very experienced or a new one, coming out of college, everybody can adapt. It's in fact, it's a very engaging process to be able to use that, because you do feel a little more on your game, and we have found that the engagement levels are quite high, and that there's no difference really in people wanting to participate with it. And so I think it's kind of a myth out there that we can't reskill a lot of folks, that once they have this information.
I don't know exactly how we train the current generation of HR leaders. I think somebody said yesterday, at 18, they weren't, gee, I hope I grow up to be in HR. I don't remember that ever being part of my plan.
Sure.
And so most of us have taken circuitous routes into our careers. I think that some people probably figured out early in their, in college, gee, I think that HR thing is interesting. But it was the furthest thing in the world from I'm a failed comedy writer. And so, I stand-up comic for a while, and so, those skills, how did those skills, pour into the world? They did, though. They ended up, improv training was the best skill for me to have in terms of an HR career. And so because I think that what happens with this is we may be looking for a different profile in terms of what we think HR should be. And I think as we create a more human world, as we create a more human workplace, I think that we may be looking for different skills, and we may be developing people differently as they come up through the ranks. I think the skills, knowledge, and ability that we've used in the past, we're going to have to disabuse ourselves of some of those requirements and create an entirely new set of attributes that we think are important. Pardon me.
Just to add to that, I think something that Nancy said earlier about just getting people out from behind the computer and behind the desk and picking up the phone or going out and doing meetings with people in person. If automation can help drive that and bring more data to people to use to go have the conversations, I think there's still going to be the same baseline of skills that our HR teams are going to need to know, but being able to use that at a different level and interact with people is really where the rubber hits the road. And it's so easy to hide behind a desk or a phone or a computer these days that if that forces people to get out, I think that'll be.
It redefines the words business partner that you.
It does.
Because I would just say we're doing it internally, but also we can see the proof points in the business, right? What we do in HR, all of these things automated, this, it contributes to sales results, right?
Sure.
And so we're at the table quite often, we're talking about the talent, are they ready, and all of that. But to get to a place where as a business partner, or whatever you want to call it, you really are a business partner because they want you to come in because they know all of this information that you have, the way that you're doing things differently. It's like, come help us solve this. And you find that it's not just we're supporting and partnering with the functions, we're actually truly thinking with them because we have access to human capital information that's just fundamentally different and it's provable now.
Right.
It becomes
That's true.
It's better.
No longer
Tangible.
It's no longer opinion.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, my Mac broke and I had to give it to IT, and I was without my laptop for almost 3 days. And basically, I thought my head was going to explode. I mean, think about being, that many days without your laptop. And I was in the CEO's office, and I love this guy. It is such a privilege to participate in his career. And I said, my Mac's been broken for 3 days, and I'm just frantically using all my energy, just running around, kind of annoying and disrupting people because, And he turned to me and said, "Oh, so you're doing your job?" And he's right, because every time I'm behind a keyboard, every time I put a screen in front of me, I'm not engaging with anybody.
Right. Great. We'd like to open it to the audience. Any questions you have for our panel? I'm sure there's a couple out there, people thinking about taking the journey or ways you've leveraged it. I have one up here.
I'm loud. I can do it myself.
Okay.
So, I gotta do it myself anyway. So there have been a few bots, particularly in talent acquisition, that recently have been phenomenal failures. They've actually reinforced bias. Microsoft had Tay pulled in 2016, Amazon recently. How do you address that or manage it as you're leaning into it, trying to embrace it? How do you make sure that you're putting the safeguards in place that these bots don't wind up reinforcing bias or creating greater gulfs?
That's a great question.
Yeah, we use, so if I just speak to automation anywhere, we use several tiers of technology. And so it's not just the bots that we've created. We've created a bot that goes out every night and scans. So it's interesting what it scans. It scans off of our job postings and our requisitions. It scans for keywords, right? Just like anybody's technology would do. It then, by the way, has the ability to, it also scans all of our employees' LinkedIn profiles to remind us if somebody inside might actually be qualified for that. And it particularly goes out and looks for our ex-employees to see if they should boomerang somebody. And so, could there be bias in that bot? There could be. It's if then, although it really is on the attributes of the skills of the role, and even less about the experience level, so we've done that. We have another technology that we brought in that stack ranks, right? Who's the, so because this could be an enormous number of particular, what looks like a candidate. And so we have another technology that comes in and stack ranks it, and then we have human intervention, and that's where humans start to touch the process. We're very aware of it. We think about it every day. We're trying to run other analytics against it. Of course, I heard yesterday that probably those analytics have equal amount of bias. I think it's vigilance. I think that if you ever think, oh, the bot has done that, when it deals with human beings as a whole, as opposed to just human data, right? When a bot is working on payroll, when they're calculating a bonus, when they're doing all of that stuff, and there's none of the variables that come in around human beings, I think you can trust your bots implicitly. I think when you get to the variables around humanity, you're going to have to continuously do some analytics to say, and I'm certain I'm not, disaffecting someone. We do a lot of work, though, the human work that we do. We're talking about pay equity yesterday, and we look at that quarterly. We don't do that once a year. We do that because we are, there was a concern about whether biases in the system, in all systems, whether they're run by a bot or human. I got to tell you, that bot's going to have a lot less biases, even if a couple have been built into it, a lot less biases than a hiring manager. And so, we think that we've already taken that out. We're also trying, and I think the one thing a bot can do for you is they can conduct a process that looks a lot like a symphonic orchestra audition. Bots actually can't see gender. Now, if you figure out that there are words that men use on resumes more frequently than women, right, you may have to get some expert help in trying to suss that out, how men use language differently than women. But mostly, again, bots can't tell from a name as humans can. Bots only have the unbiased, they only have the biases you can put in an if-then, whereas human beings have all sorts of biases that are not so unconscious that there's no way to program around.
I would just on the talent management side, not recruiting, but if you think about the technology that does that too, right? You can pull in all the performance, like it does all of those equations for you. You still need to know strategically where you're at on your talent journey, right? So I think we all have a view of, are we diverse enough? What does our system look like? So even if it's pulling in information for you, I think you still have to check that against where are you at in your journey to being as diverse or inclusive as you're looking to be, because it gives you a counterpoint too, because it could look, it will come out with some good results, but you still need to know where you're at in your journey.
We recently did a spiff, so to speak, for International Women's Day and Month around female candidates in the employee referral program. We just used it as a way to raise some awareness worldwide. I couldn't program a bot to find women. I can't send a bot out to find women necessarily. It's kind of hard to give an if-then around, what am I going to say? What would automatically, define you as a woman on a resume or LinkedIn profile? Nothing. And so it's interesting. That's kind of validation that if I can't go seeking one specific thing from this bot, it takes a human to do that.
You have to remember too that, it's humans who are designing the platform for the bot.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the bias is being built into whatever the line of code is that we're programming into the bot. So while we haven't gone there, I'm sure it's a matter of refining.
Right.
Try it, look at it, go back, re-look at it, continue to get better at it. It's not just a one-size-fits-all, one time only, and go run it and hope for the best. It's a matter of refinement.
One of our customers has a bot that goes and does all the data analytics on the work the other bots are doing, right? So it goes in and says, well, yeah, why wouldn't you? And so it's interesting. This is a company that hires about 8,000 people a year, and they come back with something is wrong because you're not recruiting out of these areas.
You can't get mad at that bot.
Yeah.
For giving you that feedback.
That's right.
All right. We're running a little short on time, so please join me in thanking our panel today.